Good evening and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting live and in person in Donaldsonville on October the 1st, 2020. We are thrilled to be here tonight. I think that all of our councilmen are present except so far Councilman Turner. At this time we will have the invocation and the pledge. Councilman Thomas, if you will please lead us in the invocation, if you all remain standing for the pledge.
Bow our head. Most Heavenly Father, as we come at this hour in the evening, Lord, we come for no shape, form, or fashion. We come, Lord, to truly say, Lord, we thank you, Lord, for allowing us to see you tonight. And Lord, we come, Father, about parish business. We ask, Lord, that you direct us and lead us in a mighty way. Oh, Lord, I pray, Lord, that you bless each and every person here tonight under the sound of my voice. Lord God, we allow us to agree to disagree. We ask, Lord, that you continue to guide, lead, and direct us in a mighty way. In your name we pray. We all say amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There, Councilman Turner has not yet joined us, but we'll be watching for him. There is an opportunity for public comment tonight. If you have an item on the agenda that you desire to comment on, you will come to the podium, get one of the red, white, blue, green cards, and fill that out and get that to Cinnamon, and she will get it to me, and we will call upon you at the appropriate time. You have 3 minutes to comment on any item. At this time, the parish president's report. Good evening, Mr. Quintmall.
Good evening, Council. We're going to turn it over to the CAO, John Diaz. Got a good report today.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
Council members, as always, it's a pleasure to be here in Donaldsonville, starting to feel like we're getting back to normal. Might want to knock on wood. I was sitting on the couch the other night and it hit me. We were coming up on a 2-week anniversary where we didn't have a hurricane in the Gulf or a major pandemic, worldwide pandemic, and by the time I turned on the TV, and there it was, 2020's next biggest catastrophe, and it was the Biden-Trump debate.
There you go.
It's not a train wreck. Anyway, from the very beginning, we've expressed to the council that our goal was to always do the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people at the lowest possible cost. We've talked a lot about efficiencies and accountability, and that's why we come to you today excited to announce that we are in full stride with SSA and Lady of the Lake on our efficiency and accountability survey or study. Things are going well. It's a great opportunity for SSA to meet with our staff, to help our staff define the problems and also define the solutions. In addition to what SSA is doing, we've been working very closely with Brian Martinez and Brandon O'Day. I can't say enough about these guys. While SSA and Lady of the Lake are dealing with workflow problems, supervisory problems, those operational type problems, we're spending a lot of time building a bunch of data sets to help us define the problem, but also come up with a better idea of what efficient is. That's our problem. In government, we don't have a profit margin. So what does efficiency look like? There's no measure, there's no metrics. So the first task that we've been doing is basically trying to get an idea of what everything costs. Of the various data projects that we have going on, probably the one that's required the bulk of our time right now is to put GPS systems on all our tractors. It's not just going to monitor the location of the tractor, whether the tractor is idle, the speed at which it's moving and where it's went. We're actually putting them on the PTOs, so we'll know when those actual tractors are producing a profit for us. If you look at slide 3, I kind of have a little couple of images of what we see on our side. It's not just the images we see, it's the data that we have behind the scenes that we're able to use to make decisions. By doing this, we not only get a better understanding of what it costs to cut each one of these routes, but what manpower it takes, but more importantly, it gives us it gets us closer to developing the scheduled maintenance plan that we've always talked about and never been able to deliver. It is our goal at some point to when you call to have a ditch cut, instead of them telling you they'll be here X, Y, and D, we tell you what day it's scheduled to be cut. And because we know each one of these routes, we know exactly how long it took these tractors to cut it, over time we'll have enough data to put together a very comprehensive scheduled maintenance plan. Something else we've been working with, and Ricky's kind of taking lead on this, facilities management. It's not sexy, but trust me, if you don't take it serious, it could cost you a lot of money, and I think, Ms. Terry, you experienced that with the library board. It could be very costly. Ricky Compton has really been doing a good job of trying to calculate exactly what it takes for us to maintain and repair a building once we acquire it, what it costs to keep the utilities running, and also this custodial work. We've worked with the school board. We've met with Chad Lynch, Jeff Parral. Those guys do a really great job of managing their facilities, and they know down to the square inch or the square foot exactly what things cost them. We haven't finished calculating our costs, but we have found some industry standards of what it costs, so that once we do have our costs, we'll know if we'll have that measure of are we efficient or are we not. So if you look on page 4, and once again, this goes to the point that nothing's for free. Even when the judges decide to build their own courthouse, there's a cost incurred. According to the industry standards, to maintain and repair a building, it costs you $1.63 per square foot per year. Just the utilities will cost you $2.14 per foot per year, and the custodial cost will be $1.37. Long story short is, based on the industry standards, we probably will spend close to $500,000 just to maintain that courthouse. And it's just not the courthouse, it's every building we have. And to put that, I guess, in other terms, every year we're going to spend 1/4 of a roundabout to maintain the courthouse. So once again, buildings are expensive, and it's not just the cost of purchasing the buildings. It's a lot more than that. If you turn to page 5 or slide 5, I don't think it has the number on it, but it's titled Jail Utility Costs. So in Ricky's efforts to figure out what everything costs, he stumbled across a problem that has been occurring since probably midway through 2016. If you look at that graph, you can see between 2011 and 2016, the average utility cost for our jail averaged about $350,000. After 2016, it skyrocketed. From 16 to 17, it went up $100,000. From 17 to 18, our utility costs went up $200,000, and then it peaked at 2019 at $729,000. Come to find out, the meter was broke, and ACD1 was overcharging the parish jail. The good news is we found the problem, we solved it. We're working on the policies and procedures to correct it. We've turned it over to O'Neill. At some point, I mean, here's the million-dollar question, literally, is how does the jail get its money back from an entity that doesn't show a profit? And in light of O'Neill's recent ruling, it can't come from the jail fund. I mean, from the half-cent sales tax. So once again, the problem's been, the good news is we discovered it, we fixed it, and we put policies and procedures to make sure it never happens again. The bad news is ACD can't afford to pay this back. It's just that simple. Also, too, we're excited to bring to you at the next meeting our first draft budget. One of the things from day one that we were always concerned about when we looked at parish finances is the exponential growth in personnel and salaries. If you look at the graph on page 6, you can see our payroll has gone from $14 million in 2011 to $26 million in 2020. Of that $12 million increase, 75% of it has occurred in the last 4 years, so it's been a rapid, very, very fast increase in payroll. And once again, we need to decide if we're going to be a job service or we're going to provide services to the public. And it's our goal to over the next 3 years to bring this number down. Rough estimates, in our first year, we've been able to knock anywhere from $900,000 to $1 million off payroll. It is our goal going forward for the next 3 years to try to do the same, to knock $4 million off of payroll. We're working with SSA on various packages and different options and different ways to bring payroll down in a way that, respects the fact that people have to provide for their families. It's not just personnel that brings payroll up. It's everything like overtime. So if you look at page 7, pay raises. If you look at page 7, you'll see that the parish has been more than generous when compared to the school board, the sheriff's department, even St. Charles Parish, and we're in the process of getting other entities to see what their COLA raises have been. But since 2010, Ascension Parish government has given COLA raises to the tune of 33%. So that averages about 3.3% a year. If you look at the Ascension Parish School Board, each year they give about a 1.1% COLA raise. The Sheriff Department gives a 1% COLA raise. St. Charles also 1%. In the red, all the way to your right, you'll see CPI. That's from the Bureau of
labor and statistics. Essentially, that's what the CPI is going up 18%. So it's obvious that we've been more than generous with pay raises. And though we have not yet decided what type of pay raise we're going to give at the end of this year, rest assured it's not going to be the 5% that a lot of people are rumored that we have. It's not going to be 5%, and it'll be hard pressed to be 3%. We're still in a COVID economy, and it's just, it doesn't make sense for us to, at this point, to go off and give a 5% pay raise. And so we're just managing expectations. It will not be 5%, and we're still deciding what else it would be. But once again, too, we think this is the last year, and if we have our way, and if we can put it all together with SSA, this will be the last year that we only give COLA raises. We hope next year to start with performance pay raises. Once we set metrics and we can evaluate the value of various employees and what they deliver. So anyway, I'm just trying to manage expectations because I get a lot of phone calls when we get that 5% raise, and you're not. The other problem we have is with overtime. Once again, if you look from 2012 to 2015, the average overtime was about $149,000 a year. From 2016 to 2019, it averaged about $359,000 a year. Listen, we get that overtime is sometimes necessary, but when abused, it's a function of you're just not managing your people correctly. And so we're working with SSA to put some overtime policies in place to get this number back to how it was during the time of Martinez administration. The fact of the matter is when you add a bunch of employees, your overtime should go down and not up. So anyway, and also real quick, just so you understand the graph, the bars that are in red were during years where we had an emergency, and the bars in blue are just your normal year. So if you turn to slide 9, I took the emergency years out, and this is overtime kind of normalized into the years. And once again, you can see prior to 2015, it was manageable. After 2015, it was unmanageable. Also, too, if you turn to slide 10, it's my understanding from HR that we have not done a employee performance evaluation since 2015. I'm excited to say that HR has put together an evaluation form. There's 2 types, one basically blue collar and white collar. They work closely with SSA to make sure that it measured everything we want. Randy has tested it with several supervisors just to get their input to make recommendations, and we plan on by the end of November having the final survey done with every employee. So once again, we're looking forward to being able to evaluate employees. And I'll be honest with you, we think we're going to learn a lot on what we're looking from an evaluation standpoint, so that in 2021, when we start giving performance-based pay raises, we'll have a better instrument. Also, last but not least, if you look at the slide 12, we have agreed to, I guess, ink a deal with Tyler Technologies and their dashboard. Essentially, we're going to use what they call Scorata, which is their basically AscensionParishCheckbook.com. This is going to be our transparency website. We looked at least half a dozen transparency sites that could display the budget. This was a good one. It wasn't the best one, but they're going to give us a 6 free trial run, and we like free. And we didn't have to give them a credit card and cancel it, so we're going to give it a try. But if you look at page 12, it basically, no longer do we have to call Dawn to get information. You just go to your computer, you can filter it by fund, by object item, budget item, organization, and it just, gives you a wealth of information. It's everything from HR. You can take a look at, our turnover, our churn, how many people we hired, our payroll. So anyway, we're excited. We want to launch this in January of 2021. Once again, we may transition out of this one sometime mid-year, but we're going to give it a chance. This is a new company. It ties in perfectly with our ERP system, so we're hoping that the conversion process is going to be simple and easy and painless. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Well, Mr. Diaz, that was a wonderful report.
No
I
questions?
don't know if anyone has any questions. I see some, so if you'll stand right there.
I knew Corey was going to blow it.
Okay, so we'll start all the way over on my right with Coach, and we'll just come this direction.
Mr. President, I have a few questions. First one is with the deal with the water, $30,000 a month, water bill. How long is that going?
This is about midway of 2016
Up until?
till we found it a week ago.
responsible for it?
Whoever the utility director was in 2016. And here's, so we looked at every possible thing that could go wrong. One, the meter could have been broke. Two, in the billing software, you can put a factor on, so I can receive everybody's bill and put a factor of 0.2, which multiplies that your use by some number. That number could have been wrong, or it could have just been finagled with, to be honest with you. And so it's one of those three. This goes back to 2016. How do we figure out exactly what happened and why it was missed? I was able to, and I passed this on to O'Neill, Finance caught it in 2016. The second it happened, they sent out several emails trying to track down, why did this happen? I mean, because it was huge. You went from $7,000 a month to $33,000 a month. I was kind of excited that we caught that. But for some reason, the trail just went dead. They couldn't get any answers as to how, why, or who. And so it just continued to happen.
So they won't get their money back.
I think by law, they're going to have to get their money back. But you basically stole money from your right pocket and put it in your left pocket. And so I don't even know if that's stealing. Unless you're the right pocket, then it probably is. But
All right, the other question is the raise. The raise, 5% raise, put in the budget. We got to decide on what
We have not.
we will give them, the employees.
Nothing. We don't.
You can go ahead and put it in the budget.
yes. But it was put in the budget before you had a COVID crisis as well. So,
Are we gonna do anything? Are we gonna give them?
yeah, we're going to give them a raise. They'll get a cost of living raise.
It won't be the
It
5%.
won't be 5%. In fact, there's only been one time in the history of, well, I don't say the history, in the last 10 years where they've gotten a 5% raise. It's either 5, 4, and it's mostly 3. So,
I assume they have it for Christmas.
November.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Beard, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Coach. Next, I think Councilman Ogeron, Mr. Robert,
No
did you have
question.
any questions? Councilman Ogeron, I know your hand was up.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
I'm glad you cleared up the conversation regarding the jail utility costs, because I heard you in your presentation say that it was a broken meter, but I think you were hoping it was just a broken meter.
I don't think we'll ever know, to be honest.
We don't know for certain at this
Yeah.
point. Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that because, I think this administration, and I think Mr. Quintmore would agree, that we need to do a thorough investigation as to what took place regarding this. Because I think, as we all know, we were showing a shortfall on the recoveries that we were receiving at PUA. And it's kind of ironic that at the time that it was discovered that we were having a shortfall, this meter broke, and all of a sudden we're finding $30,000 from the jail to kind of cover some of these losses. And so I strongly think, and I said, knowing Mr. Quintmore, as I've learned to get to know him, he's going to insist upon an investigation. And I'm glad to, and if you need any assistance with getting that done, I'll definitely support you with that.
Of course, I want to go to the proper procedures of people who investigate it, 'cause it's not us. So we'll have to contact the DA's office and have that discussion.
Great, I appreciate it. If you need me, if you invite me, I'll join you with it. We were discussing facility management, and you brought up the costs of the new jail, of the new courthouse. And I wasn't quite clear. These numbers that we have on page 4, are those specifically for the courthouse, or is it
That's
facility?
industry standards on per square foot, so I multiplied each one of these by 90,000 square foot, which is the size of the courthouse.
Okay.
And so based on industry standards, that's what it should cost.
So out of curiosity, did you also take a look at what it costs to maintain the glass house?
I think that's 60 square foot, so if you do the math, you can figure it out.
How much is it?
The glass house, I think, is 60,000 square feet. but I'm not sure.
60,000 square feet, okay. So I'm sure we can do that math at some point to see.
Call Ricky and ask him.
Huh?
Ricky will know.
He handles stuff inside as well as outside?
Yep.
Okay, good. You also, you stated there's a $1 million reduction in payroll that y'all done. How has that been accomplished? Firing people? So we've discharged $1 million more in salaries than those that we have increased recently?
So I think we've discharged, if that's the proper term, $1.4 million worth, and place them now, in the parish president's right, we've had retirements that we didn't replace.
Sure. That's why I said discharge,
Yeah.
people, terminations, people leaving the system. But does that $1 million reduction, does that include the $500,000 or more that we've added
Yes.
in upper management positions?
Yes, but we haven't added up $500,000 more.
Just under $500,000, but that's okay.
We've cut $900,000 to $1 million worth.
Good. And that's fine.
Glad you think so.
That's all I have for you, John.
All right.
The next one I'll let someone else ask.
All right.
Did you have a question, Dempsey? Go right ahead.
The only thing I disagree with you on this overtime. We dodged the bullet a couple of times here this year. I think, Fridays and Saturdays, you're fine on Saturdays. I think this is one thing that we got out of the past. We're not dealing with a lot of traffic. You can get off and cut. You got more productivity. You can cut more. I don't know if we want to talk swing shift, but I'm telling you right now, if those storms would have hit us the way they were directed this year, you'd be standing there saying different things right now of the water in this parish. And these pumps, all these channels are designed to be cut, clean, and receive water at the pump station. All I'm saying is I'm an overtime believer, and I think there's a way we can work that matter of traffic, off-road. I think we need to start not only GPS and the PTOs, but we need to, just look, some of the stuff we can just think out of the box on, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and Dempsey, we're not opposed to paying people overtime, but we want to make sure we got our 40 hours during the week.
I agree with you 100%.
That's all. Yep. And I'll be quite honest with you, we fundamentally want to pay fewer employees, but more money.
Yeah.
We're competing with the chemical industry for these good young men, particularly at DPW, and you can't get them at $14 an hour. So,
That's my 2 cents. Thank you for your report.
Thank you. On my left, Mr. Lawler.
Yeah, first of all, the Tyler Industries thing, Tyler and Snell, sounds really cool. I'm so glad that's getting done. Do we know what the cost will be after 6 months?
yeah, and I don't have to get it for you, I'll email it to you. It was, so the one we really like, essentially the OhioCheckbook.com, it was literally $175,000 set up and $100,000 a year. This is a fraction of it. So we're going to try it, see if it works, and if we like it. And they're a new company, they're adding new widgets every month, and so maybe we grow with them and get a discount.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
I have to be picky on numbers, but the essential overtime thing, this is what it looks like on May 31st, 2020.
Yep.
So are the years 2016?
No, that's when I compiled the date. So the 2020 year-to-date is as of 5/31/2020.
Yeah, that's what, are these other ones as of just 5/31?
No, but that's all of 2019.
Yeah, so I mean, my concern
So
is.
the only one that is not accurate as to date is the last one, the 2020 year-to-date, and I thought I took that one out, but,
No, that's what I'm saying. If you
because that's 6 months behind.
and you extrapolated it out, it'd be
Yeah.
approximately $600,000.
Yep. And you should also put 2020 as an emergency year. We've had several hurricanes and,
Okay. I
Yep.
didn't want, the public's looking at this to think, oh, it's so much down, but we're really not yet.
We're not.
We're about.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Wagasback.
What was the, and I apologize if it's something obvious, what was the big emergency in 19?
in 19, so the word at the glass house was it was an election year.
Okay, fair enough.
But actually, there was
I
a
was just
hurricane.
racking my brain. I was trying to think of, am I missing
No, but
something?
there was a hurricane, and I don't remember what it was, but Barry, that's it.
Okay. But that wouldn't account for all of it. That's fine. And then on the checkbook thing is, I mean, I'm assuming that's gonna be something the public can
Oh, yes.
click on,
Yep.
look at.
And it will be tied into our ERP system, so at midnight, so if we write somebody a check, some consulting firm for $200,000 by midnight, it'll be posted and it'll be out there for you to see, so it'll be just like your own personal checking account, you can see every fund, every.
Wow.
I would make the comment that we should probably be prepared to maybe put out monthly summaries. Once you
Right.
once you increase transparency, there'll be more questions
Yep, I agree,
about decisions being made and.
I agree, and that's the whole point.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. Just throwing out that word of caution. I think it's a good thing, though. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cagnolati?
Thank you, Madam Chair. John, good report. Just a quick question on the employee evaluations. This is something we've been working on for a very long time. Glad to see they're here. Just a quick question. You said that the evaluation forms and they're scheduled to conduct them in November. Is part of that going to include a peer review or a
Yes. Yes.
I think usually most people use one or the other.
Yep.
Are y'all going to
And
incorporate
we
a
may try a couple different
self-review?
things with SSA just to see what works. We're considering this an experimental year since we're not going to base anybody's pay raise off of these performance evaluations. This is as much to train supervisors how to conduct an employee evaluation. And so we may do a couple different things, just to see what works and what works not just for us from a decision-making standpoint, from a supervised standpoint. I mean, you got to make sure you're measuring valid measurements, your metrics, and you're asking the right questions. And it's difficult when you're trying to evaluate the performance of people who drive tractors as opposed to someone who may do, IT work. And so,
And you answered my second question, was you're going to train supervisors how to do
Correct.
this. So I guess that's why it's taking from now till November sometime to get it to roll out, right?
yes,
Okay. Appreciate a summary, how it's going from
perfect.
time to time, okay? That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Mason, do you have any questions?
I just want to say thank you, and then Councilman Wagisback asked my question.
Well, I too want to say thank you very much. I can't remember what year it was, but it was several ago that we began the discussion of performance-based raises. And we just couldn't get there. Couldn't get there because of weaknesses in a lot of areas. And so I'm very grateful and to have that come to this body tonight, ready to go. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you and SSA, and thank you for hiring them. Thank you very much. All right. The consent agenda, and I'm going to read that since there's only these two items. Item A, adoption of the September 3rd, 2020 regular council meeting minutes. And item
Motion to
B, the
adopt, Madam
adoption
Chair.
of the September 17th, 2020 regular council meeting minutes.
Motion
I have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati, a second by several folks. We'll give it to Mr. Malassaw to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. General business, item 7A, approval of professional selection committee results for emergency debris removal, DRC Services Incorporated. Ms. Cynthia LeBlanc, our purchasing director. Good evening, Ms. Cynthia.
Good evening. On September 17th, the Purchasing Department received 6 proposals for the emergency debris removal. After careful review, the non-engineering selection committee recommends accepting the proposal submitted by DRC Emergency Services and to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service.
Motion approved.
I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Malassaw, a second by, where'd that come from? Mr. Cagnolati, to approve. I have some questions. Mr. Ogeron.
Took a look at the scorecard results on this, and I've got some questions regarding how these were graded, how these were determined.
Rachel from OEP.
Rachel, thank you, Rachel.
I have the scorecard.
You got the scorecard?
Yes.
I'm looking at it, I find some oddities with it, and I was just curious as to what were you guys actually grading? What were you scoring to make these determinations?
So first of all, we look at each company. A lot of these companies, we really want to make sure that they are a company that does debris removal. Debris is one of those things that is a FEMA regulated task. So you have debris monitoring, which actually monitors the debris removal. So those are two things you can get into in an emergency. So these packets, that's the first thing we look at. Do you have the staff? Do you have the equipment? Can you get the equipment here during an emergency? So if you have companies that are out of state or in Florida, North Carolina, that just makes it a little bit more challenging to get to South Louisiana. We've actually had DRC in contract with them for the last 10 years. We've contracted them since 2010. So they've worked with us for that long. Their company is based out of New Orleans, and they do have a division in Galveston. So we've worked with them, especially during the flood. They were able to get employees and equipment and trucks to us fairly quickly. And having them in New Orleans, they actually call during an emergency and pre-stage, should we ask them to. So they're able to go on a standby mode, and then if we need them in Ascension Parish, they send people in Ascension Parish. So we've had good luck with DRC, and we've been very pleased with them. As far as the other, all the other companies, we just kind of go through the packets. I mean, Dustin and I have done this for a pretty couple years. We have Ron Salvo on our committee, Mike Enlow. Those are some other experienced individuals that come in to kind of go through the packets.
And the reason I'm asking is, as you look through the scorecard, it seems that most of these scores are in that upper 60 to mid-70 range. And then what jumps out at me is that there are 3 scores for DRC that are up in the mid-90s.
I think that's just because they've been a great company to work for the past 10 years, honestly.
And so that's like I said, I understand and I appreciate your explanation, but when you first look at this,
Sure.
I'm like, long time ago, I judged children's beauty pageant, and I didn't realize that you never gave a child a score below a 7. and so if there were 8 kids up there,
Yeah.
10, 9, 8, all the way down to 3.
Yeah.
And
I think the high score goes to the experience and our relationship with the company. Yeah, we've been here since 2010 with them, and Ron, Mike Enlow, and Dustin and myself have had.
So I was just looking, Ron and Mike both gave them scores about 15 points lower than yours.
Yeah, I mean, our relationship with DRC, I've been very satisfied with them. For the last couple events that we've used them, we have been pleased. So,
We have trust you, and I mean, I especially trust your opinion. I was curious. I want to make sure somebody didn't reverse numbers or something.
yeah, but that's why. That's why.
Perfect. Thank you much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Any other questions, gentlemen? I don't see any. So we have
Okay.
a motion by Councilman Melanson and a second by Cagnolati. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item B, approval of a sponsorship agreement between Lamar Dixon Expo Center and City Switch 11-A LLC for a 1-year period. And that's Mr. Kyle Rogers. Hi, Kyle. Have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Ogeron, a second by Mr. Mason to approve. Are there any questions? Mr. Melanson.
I'd just like to hear a little bit about it. I
Sure.
read through it last night, but
Yeah, no, this is something we were really excited about securing with City Switch. It's a tower that's going to be placed in an area behind the sewer treatment plant, if you're familiar with our campus, that's kind of not being used. It's going to give us an opportunity to give coverage, cell coverage to our larger events, i.e. Sportsman Show, Balloon Festival, things like that, where people are kind of complaining about not having, not being able to check in on Facebook or whatever. But it's going to give them the opportunity to make phone calls, to be able to have a little bit better coverage, things like that. And we're really excited about it. And we're being able to do it and have somebody pay us to do it. So that's a good part too. We're always looking for a spot to make money.
Wonderful. Any other questions?
I happen to know somebody who works close by who's going to appreciate it.
There you go. Mr. Cagnolati.
We talked about it before, Kyle. Doesn't this also increase the opportunity for networks to broadcast events from our facility?
It does. It gives us a better opportunity kind of to broadcast. It also gives us a better opportunity for those consumer events, kind of like what we're talking about with Sportsman Show, Helen Brett, some of those larger consumer shows, where they're using a Squarespace or maybe they're using an online vendor POS. They'll have better coverage, better opportunity to service those customers.
And a wise use of, because it's out in the middle of nowhere where we don't need the property anyway.
Right, it's behind the sewer treatment plant, and it's not gonna be used, and it's the best rental we've ever made on that spot, so.
That'll be
Fantastic.
all, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. We had a motion and a second to approve. Are there any further questions? Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank y'all so much.
Tell Gray good luck.
Item C, approval to accept a grant award in the amount of $52,034.51 for the fiscal year 2020 State Homeland Security Grant, of which 25% is required to go to law enforcement, and to authorize Parish President Quintmall to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this application, or Ms. Gwen LeBlanc, CFO, for the financial documents. Ms. Martha?
Motion.
I have a
I
motion
don't
first
think
by
I'll
Mr.
ever get to
Cagnolati. They're
speak,
giving them to
so
you
go
quick.
ahead.
Mr. Cagnolati
Second.
has a motion. I have a second by Mr. Malasal. Ms.
Yeah.
Martha, do you want to say something about this?
This has been a good, this is a federal grant that comes down to the state, which is automatically get dispersed through the parishes. So we've been fortunate to get this grant yearly, and it helps with training for our fire departments, our law enforcement, and it's a good tool that we can use for staying abreast and being prepared for rescue.
Thank you very much. Had a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Martha, it's great to see you.
I got about six.
You got a
so
few
go ahead.
more? I hadn't turned the page yet. Forget what's coming
I got
next.
a few more. I'm trying to get y'all some money.
Item D, approval to accept grant award in the amount of $33,368.65 for the fiscal year 2020 Emergency Management Performance Grant, and to authorize Parish President Clint Quintmall to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this application, and/or Ms. Gwen LeBlanc, CFO, for financial documents.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Mason,
Second.
second by Mr. Robert. Are there any questions? Objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item E, approval to apply for the fiscal year 2020 Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant, and to authorize Parish President Clint Quintmall to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this application, or Ms. Gwen LeBlanc, CFO, for financial documents.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Robert,
Second.
second by Mr. Lawler. Are there any questions? Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, it looks like an estimated $160 million available. What is this for?
Okay, thank you. I'll be happy to tell you. This one is for, we use it for elevations of homes that were in the repetitive loss, severe repetitive loss. We were approved the first part of this year. I can't get to it.
I know, and I can't hear you.
Okay. It's to be used for repetitive loss, severe repetitive loss, homes that are in the risk. This is a national grant. We compete. Last year, or the first part of this year, we were awarded $1.6 million, and we are elevating 10 homes. The next one for 2019 is $1.3 million. We've not gotten an approval on that. So these are going to this grant right here will help take those homes and elevate them and reduce the risk factors for our residents.
Thank you very much. That's what I thought it was for. I just wanted the public to hear a little bit about that, because I think there's a real opportunity. If we have people in our districts that we know of, who do we have them contact? Do we have them contact you, or should they go through us? How do they apply for this sort of thing?
This grant is, the residents are dictated on what houses we do raise is by the National Flood Insurance Program. So you can't just call and get on a list or something. The list is provided to us by FEMA, and then we utilize that list, send out mail-outs to all those who are on the list to see if they're interested. Then we go through a process to gather information, put an application together, make sure everything is in order, and then it usually takes us about a year and a half to go through the approval process. If there's someone that has had repetitive loss, they can call our office and we'll check to see if they're on a list. The normal, without being on that list, you have to have an event. like August 16th, that was a major flood, normal things like that, but most of the time, all of ours are coming from the high-risk areas.
Thank you very much.
Quite welcome. That number, did you want the number?
Yes, I would love that number.
I'm not going to give it to you. No. 225-450-1128. And just tell them they want to get some information about elevating their home, and then we'll talk to them, explain to them the program, and be happy to help them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Quite welcome.
So we have a motion and a second by Mr. Robey and Mr. Lawler. Are there any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item F, approval to apply for the fiscal year 2020 Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant application and to authorize Parish President Quantma to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this application, and/or Ms. Gwen LeBlanc, CFO, for financial documents.
Motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati, a second by Mr. Mason. Are there any questions?
I'll
Mr.
just
Lawler.
tell you what the program's about.
Yes.
The program has a cap of about, I think it went from 4 million. This recently has changed names of what is being offered. So this is a new program, and it's for large drainage projects. There's a cap on it, certain requirements that have to be done. They have to be almost shovel-ready so that they don't get into a thing and start planning. They need to be ready to go. And then we can, up to $4 to $15 million on some of these. It is a national grant, so we compete for these projects. So the more projects that we have ready, or that we can produce a good application in, then it goes to the state. They take all of the state projects, and then they select from there, and then it goes to the national. So we've not been successful with this. We've not submitted some because we're not ready, and I discourage having an application put in just to put an application in.
I agree.
It takes a lot of time on these, and I want us to be known by giving them a good product.
And you may not be the right person to ask, do you know if we have any plans for drainage that we can submit?
I'm working with Ron Savoy and them to put some projects together to see, and we'll go in and actually predetermine, qualify, see what we have on each one, to see if it meets the requirements, and then we'll go from there. There's a lot of projects that are out there right now, and like I said, we just want to make sure we get a good project, and some of these need more planning or modeling, H&H's, environmental stuff, permitting, before you go to these. So we got an opportunity, and I think there might be some out there we could use.
Okay, I have several things to Mr. Quintma, if you want to go ahead and speak, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Thomas for a question.
This is just one of those grants, Councilman Lawler, so we have multiple funding sources. So we want to make sure we don't start just submitting different projects that we have ready to multiple. Let's try to pick a path. So we're reviewing that, but we'd like to take that to the Drainage Board and have y'all's input as well in the direction we would like to go with these projects.
Commendable. All right, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, Ms. Martin, is that being extended to the rest of the
It's parish-wide, Coach. I've talked to David. David knows that these are going to be available, and we talked to him about seeing what type of projects that are there. I mean, I don't have just an east side, Coach. I got the entire parish. So we look at it across the board.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'll remember that. I got you. I got you, Coach. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item G, Change order number 3, extension of time for 86 days due to rain days, COVID-19 labor shortages, and Mississippi River levels, Shaw Construction, Parish Sewer Program Improvements, CDBG Project 03 PARA 2301.
Motion approved.
Have a motion by Mr. Mawson and a second by Mr. Lambert to approve. Mr. Robert.
I've got a couple of questions on this particular item. This is the project in Darrow? Is that correct?
This is a CDBG HUD project for Hillville, Dara, and Astroland.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I do not oppose this, but I felt it could be an appropriate time to bring up the contractor for this particular project. I have had several complaints about messes being made and continuing to move forward with work without repairing them. So just a note that I want to make to possibly administration and whoever else.
Let me address that. We have a monthly meeting. We discuss areas that have had some going in. The weather has not been really good, so there is a possibility, but they are going to go in and repair all the work, all the outside work. They're going to go in, lay the lines, they come back and put it back to grade level. There will not be holes or trenches or something that are left over. The contractor has done a real good job in what we've been dealt with for this year. Our goal is to try and get this finished by December. I've been working on this since 2010.
And I understand that.
And so I'm going to tell you, I'm watching it like a hawk.
Yeah.
And when we have complaints, it goes straight to Stephen Balello. Stephen calls me if it's something a resident, and we both go in and assess it. Most of the times, it was not quite exactly what was brought out to.
Absolutely.
I just want, we are very attuned to what's going on out there. We want to make sure our residents are taken care of, and it's done properly, but we're not we can't just stop and fix something right at the beginning. We're going to get through with the job and the entire area. And as they move from one section to another, if they're working on Brown Street and they finish and they can get that cleaned up over here, then we're moving all the way. And we've had the Mississippi level up, so the contractors had to move from one part to another, trying to keep working to keep the project moving. So we're gonna take, if there's someone that's made a complaint, you can call me real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
We will take care of it.
And in particular, I'm not saying, hey, they need to go back and make everything perfect
No,
at the beginning, but
Right.
the particular things I'm speaking of are several residents that have beyond the right-of-way, that is not in the right-of-way, parts of their property that have been caved in, like their actual ditch bank, or their property that goes up to the ditch bank.
Okay.
Certain things like that, I think, need to be
If
addressed
you
immediately.
give
Yes, ma'am,
us a
absolutely.
call and tell us where the sites are, we'll be happy to look at it. We've had a lot of calls taken care of just by going out and making sure that what it is and explain to them,
Sounds
we've
great.
not,
Yeah. And I
not had
submitted
too many.
those, I promise.
yeah, I got you.
Any other questions? Had a motion by Councilman Lawson, a second by Councilman Lambert to approve. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Last one.
Item H, approval of amendment number 8 to professional service contract for Evans Graves to reallocate $40,000 from Task 1A, right-of-way services, to Task 2, design services, to be used for additional design for construction services, Parish Sewer Program Improvements, CDBG Project 03 PARA 2301. Ms. Martha.
Yes, ma'am. The reason why we're doing this is when we started looking at the budget for the project, I went to the utilities and the crew over there at the sewer department and told them, I said, guys, we gotta have some money left over. And if there's anything that we can do to utilize these funds, we wanna do it. Even though we don't have it in our hand, it is funds that are available for us to use. So they went in. This particular item is in budget. The contract that we have existing is not changing. We are just moving funds that have been allocated to a certain right-of-way acquisition or something. We didn't, the allocation was high, so we moved money from one to another. We're going to design, we're looking at possibly doing, the suggestion was a pump station that was giving us some problems. That was the project that they picked. And we're moving forward with having the design done, and then we'll go into actually extending that and getting that new pump station in once we have the plans. So we'll be back for Councilman Ogeron to talk about the cost. That particular thing is still within budget. We have not gone outside of the budget, so we're actually enhancing and utilizing the funds that we have. And that's what we're paid to do, is to try and stay efficient. We've kept the price down, and we've watched them, and very pleased that we did have some extra money, and we could do a little more in that area.
Mr. Cagnolati.
Yeah, Martha, you and I talked about this, and one of the key issues here is also, if we don't use that money, they can de-obligate it, and we will lose it.
This is it.
Okay.
This is our last one. We've been through 13 projects, and this is our last one, and the state is now starting to ask us when you're going to be finished, because it's been a while. So we're moving towards trying to get it finished.
Thank you. Mr. Ogeron.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Martha, first off, thank you for coming to me and asking me if it was okay to bring it to the full council as opposed, and not bring it for the utility.
That's how I do.
And I truly appreciate it, that courtesy, I really do. But I'm glad I get to ask some questions. And I see that Mr. Dawson, the senior, is present. And he probably.
Gavin, too.
And Gavin, too. It was kind of hard to recognize Gavin in that mask. His beard identifies him, and when the beard is covered, it's hard to recognize him. But I'm sure that they have some specifics as far as what this work is going to do, how it affects our future plans, because I know that we have 4 members of this council and the administration that are thrilled that we're going to enter into an agreement with NWI, with this new CEA. And I just want to know if there's going to be any conflicts. Are we really wasting $40,000, to go forward with this if it's something that's going to be obsolete come 5 o'clock tomorrow? So I think there's some questions that need to be answered on that.
Sure. Thank you, Councilman. As Ms. Collins said, when she found out that there was extra dollars that could be de-obligated, she came to the utility department and said, look, we hate to send money back. What can we do to continue to improve the project and move it forward? As she said, it was something that was since 2010. One of my first projects when I got here around 12 was to move this project forward. The work has been done. We have a lot of new lift stations out there. The piping is going in. The weakest link, quite honestly, was this old lift station that was located near the Marchand School. So when we evaluated that failure point, we understood that if there's any problems that you're going to have in maintenance in the future, would be that particular point. So since there was extra money, we said that let's look at improving that particular lift station, for the whole project. So that would allow no issues, reduce maintenance, and allow the whole project to flow smoothly without having additional funds and use the funds that could possibly be de-obligated.
When you say possibly de-obligated?
Yeah, we don't use them, they go back.
I guess, are we guaranteed that this $40,000 is going to come from the state based upon these new designs that we're going to put forward?
Yeah, this is a design, and Martha can answer that. That's, as she said, that $40,000 is already in that budget. Okay, so it's just being moved over from one line item to another so that we can utilize it for the engineering design.
And we're going to spend $40,000 on designing this project, not knowing if tomorrow at 5 o'clock the project becomes obsolete.
Oh, a pump? No, a pump is not going to become obsolete. The kind of pumps we're putting in, what's the lifespan? It won't be obsolete. Okay, we even look at flight pumps, which is some of the best design for those type of systems. State of the art, skater, able to provide skater information. So these are pumps that are top of the line. And that's what we kind of standardize with.
So we're putting new pumps in place? I thought you explained to me that we were going in and redesigning one of the bins at the Hillaryville and trying to clean that up.
No, that's another project. I mean, that's,
So that's not with this.
the other project, you're talking about the additional chamber that we have to increase the amount of capacity that we need. So that's a project that we did the sandblasting and all that kind of stuff for. This is another project that we found out those additional funds that we want to use to put pumps in to make sure that they last and that we have reduced maintenance because that's a good system.
So it's going to be additional pumps that's going to move the effluent towards.
Yeah.
the
Replacement pumping. Yeah, it won't be additional pumps, it'll be replacement pumps.
replacement.
Yes.
How many replacement pumps do we get for $40,000?
Well, that's a design. I mean, yeah, the design is $40,000. I mean, it's more money that's going to go toward the project.
Do we have the additional money to complete the project?
Yes.
If we have to design stuff?
We estimated that it would be close to maybe 300, we estimated through the engineer and our utilities, that possibly between 250,000 to 300. We have that in the budget for the construction. I would not be here today asking you for something that we didn't have within the budget. That would be a total different thing. We would not come do that. This one is just to enhance what we have, and I know the concern of saying that if we sell this, our assets, but we have a project that has to be completed either way. This thing will be completed, and then when the time comes and we go to these other issues and look at assets, that has to be determined on more than just this project. But this is going to serve and upgrade that area immensely, and it's going to be good for the Dower Hill Reveal and area, and then to the future, because you'll have something to tie into down the road. It's a good project.
Absolutely.
Mr. Dawson,
Yes, sir.
bring Ms. Martha to more of our meetings. She does a much better job of selling this stuff.
I thought I already sold it, but I talked to you earlier this week.
That was the focus.
Okay.
Thanks, my friend.
You're welcome.
If there are no other questions, the chair would entertain a motion.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Turner, a second by Councilman Melanson. Are there any other questions? Are there any objections? So there was a motion and a second. No objections. That motion passes. Item number H. Oops, nope, that was H. Item number I. Authorization for the parish president to sign all documents in the Where do I have your motion? Motion by Mr. Ogeron. Second by Mr. Melanson. Or, Mr. Parrington, do you want to explain this?
Yes, construction of a fire, one of the fire stations, and there's a boundary dispute, so Mr. Scheckschneider is the owner of the land, and he just agreed to quit claim the property to us, rather than dispute it, because there's one map showing that we own that property, one map showing he owned it, and he just decided to, I'll just give it to y'all. He'd rather the fire station than argue about it.
Well, many, many thanks to him.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Kudos to Mr. Brent Scheckschneider. So, Mr. Lawler,
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I, H.
G-H-I.
On our computers, it's backwards.
Yeah, it's IH, it's just kind of funny.
On the civic clerk, it's backwards.
All right. Are there any, other than the comedy, are there any other questions? I have a motion by Mr. Ogeron, a second by Mr. Melanson to approve item I. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 8, public hearings. Item A, reading of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to small planned unit development zoning review, IDPZ 2311.20, -lot A 1 of the George Wren property containing 4.389 acres for Aaron McBride, located on the east side of LA Highway 73, approximately 630 feet south of Southwood Village Avenue. Mr. Parrington.
This ordinance amends the official zoning designation of Lot A1 of the George Wren property containing 4.39 acres per attached legal description for medium-intensity residential to small plan unit development. This rezone is identified as zoning review ID PZ 2311.20, whereas Ascension Parish is the local government subdivision defined by Article 6, Section 44, Louisiana Constitution 1974. Whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing and responsible body over zoning and regulations within the jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4th, 1993 identifies the process and manner which should adopt ordinances regulating the lands of the parish. Whereas the official zoning map of Ascension Parish last adopted March 8, 2016, and whereas the Parish Council reserves the authority to make changes to the official zoning map by ordinance, this request has been processed in compliance with the procedures set forth. Be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the official zoning map of Ascension Parish is amended to reflect the property identified in Exhibit A as Small Plan Unit Development, SPUD, as the official zoning designation. In the event any portion of this ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions and shall not affect the validity of remaining portions of the ordinance. The effective date of this ordinance shall be submitted by law. The exhibits of the legal description, the plat map, the aerial and zoning map. This ordinance had been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to open public hearing.
I have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati to open the public hearing,
Second.
and a second by Mr. Lawler.
Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lawler and second by Mr. Cagnolati to close the public hearing. Chair would
Motion to
entertain
move
a
the
motion to move the ordinance.
Second.
Motion to move by Mr. Turner, second by Mr. Cagnolati. Are there any questions about this? Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item D, reading of an ordinance to amend the Unified Land Development Code Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations Section 17-405 Preliminary Plat. Mr. Parrington.
To amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations Section 17-405 Preliminary Plat Procedure. Whereas the Ascension Parish local government subdivision is defined by Article 6, Section 44 of the Louisiana Constitution 1974. Whereas the parish is the governing responsible body over the zoning and regulations within the jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4th, 1993 identifies the process and manner to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of this parish. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the Unified Land Development Code of Ascension Parish, Louisiana, Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations 17-405 Preliminary Plat Procedure is amended as more fully described in Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part hereof. In the event any portion of this ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions and shall not affect the validity of remaining portions of the ordinance. This ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The ordinance had been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to open public hearing.
I have a motion by Mr. Mason, a second by Mr. Cagnolati to open the public hearing. Motion by Mr. Turner, second by Mr. Cagnolati to close the public hearing.
Motion to move ordinance?
I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Walsall to move the ordinance, second by Mr. Mason. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item G, reading of an ordinance to amend the ULDC Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-40100, definitions, to add commencement of construction. Mr. Parrington.
To amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-40100, definitions, whereas Ascension Parish local government subdivision is defined by Article 6, Section 44 Louisiana Constitution 1974. Whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing responsible body over the zoning and regulations within the jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4th, 1993 identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of the parish. Now therefore be it ordained the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the Unified Land Development Code of Ascension Parish, Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations sections is amended to more fully describe as Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part hereof. In the event any portion of the ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional, but for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct,
and independent provisions shall not affect the validity of remaining portions of the ordinance. The ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to open public hearing.
Have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati and a second by Mr. Mason to open public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mason and a second by Mr. Cagnolati to close the public hearing.
Motion to move the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Cagnolati to move the ordinance, second by Mr. Melanson. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item J, reading of an ordinance directing the levy and collection of ad valorem taxes of 5.6 mils on the dollar of assessed valuation of all properties subject to taxation within the geographic boundaries of the parish of Ascension, state of Louisiana, for a period of 10 years, beginning with the year 2021 and ending with the year 2030, for the purpose of maintaining and supporting the Ascension Parish Library and its branches. Mr. Parrington.
An ordinance directing the levy and collection of an ad valorem tax of 5.6 mils on the dollar of assessed valuation of all property subject to taxation within the geographic boundaries of the parish of Ascension, state of Louisiana, for a period of 10 years, beginning with the year 2021 and ending with the year 2030, for the purpose of maintaining and supporting the Ascension Parish Library and its branches. Whereas under the provisions of Article 6, Section 32 of the Louisiana Constitution of 1974, as amended, and other constitutional and statutory authority, including an election held in the parish of Ascension, state of Louisiana, on Saturday, August 15, 2020, the Parish Council of Ascension Parish, state of Louisiana, the governing authority, as governing authority for the parish, desires to levy and collect the ad valorem tax as authorized at the election by virtue of the favorable passage of the proposition attached here to Schedule A, setting forth the rate and duration of the tax. Whereas in compliance with the provisions of said authority and other applicable constitutional and statutory authority, an election was held in the parish on Saturday, August 15, 2020, to authorize the levy and collection of an ad valorem tax. It is now the desire of the parish to levy of the ad valorem tax, to provide for collection thereof and other matters in connection therewith, as hereinafter provided in this ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained that by the governing authority that Section 1, pursuant to the authority of an election held in the parish on Saturday, August 15th, 2020, there be and there is hereby levied within the geographic boundaries of the parish for the purpose of stated in the proposition attached hereto as Schedule A, an ad valorem tax of 5.6 mils on the dollar assessed valuation of all property subject to taxation in the parish, beginning with the year 2021 and ending with the year 2030, for the purpose of maintaining, supporting the Ascension Parish Libraries and its branches, all in a manner and subject to the provisions and terms of those portions of Title 33 Louisiana Revised Statute of 1950 as amended and applicable to property taxes levied by the parish. That the ad valorem tax described in Section 1 shall be levied, assessed, imposed, collected, paid, and enforced according to law. The obligations and rights of taxpayers in connection with the ad valorem tax hereby shall be provided by the provisions of law applicable to ad valorem taxes levied by the parish. Section 4, if any one or more of the provisions of this ordinance shall be any reason held illegal or invalid, such illegality or invalidity shall not affect other provisions of this ordinance. But this ordinance shall be construed and enforced as if such illegal or invalid provisions had not been contained herein. Any constitutional or statutory provision enacted after the date of this ordinance which validates or makes legal any provision of the ordinance which would not otherwise be valid or illegal shall be deemed to apply to this ordinance. Section 5, upon adoption, the ordinance shall be published in full in one issue of the Gonzales Weekly and shall be recorded in the mortgage records of Ascension Parish Clerk of Court. The chair of the governing authority be and is hereby authorized, empowered, and directed to take any and all such actions as may be necessary to carry into effect the provisions of this ordinance. The ordinance shall be immediately take effect. The ordinance have been admitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion for public hearing?
I have a motion by Mr. Melanson and a second by Mr. Cagnolati to open a public hearing.
Motion to close?
I have a motion by Mr. Melanson and a second by Mr. Cagnolati to close the public hearing.
Motion to move.
I have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati and a second by Mr. Mason to move the ordinance. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item M, reading of an ordinance directing the renewal of the levy and collection of an ad valorem tax of 2 mils on the dollar of assessed valuation of all property subject to taxation within the geographic boundaries of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, for a period of 10 years, beginning with the year 2021 and ending with the year 2030, for the purpose of maintaining and supporting a mental health program in the parish. Mr. Parrington.
An ordinance directing the renewal of the levy and collection of an ad valorem tax of 2 mills on the dollar of assessed valuation of all property subject to taxation within the geographic boundaries of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, for a period of 10 years, beginning with the year 2021 and ending with the year 2030, for the purpose of maintaining and supporting a mental health program in the parish. Whereas under the provisions of Article 6, Section 32 of the Louisiana Constitution 1974 as amended, Section 4566 of Title 33 of Louisiana Revised Statutes 1950, as amended, and other constitutional and statutory authority, including an election held in the parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, on Saturday, August 15, 2020, the Parish Council of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, as governing authority for the parish, desires to renew the levy and collection of an ad valorem tax as authorized at the election by virtue of favorable passage of the proposition attached hereto as Schedule A, setting forth the rate and duration of the tax, and whereas in compliance with the provisions of said authority and other applicable constitutional and statutory authority, an election was held in the parish on Saturday, August 15, 2020, to authorize the renewal of the levy and collection of the ad valorem tax. It is now desired the parish to renew the levy of the ad valorem tax and to provide for the collection thereof and other matters in connection therewith as hereinafter provided in the ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the governing authority that pursuant to the authority of the election held in the parish on Saturday, August 15, 2020, there be and there is hereby levied within the geographic boundaries of the parish for the purpose stated in the proposition attached hereto as Schedule A, an ad valorem tax of 2 mills on the dollar of assessed valuation of all property subject to taxation in the parish, beginning in the year 2021 and ending in the year 2030, for the purpose of maintaining and supporting a mental health program in the parish, all in the manner and subject to the provisions and terms of those portions of Title 33 of Louisiana Revised Statute 1950 as amended, applicable to the property tax levied by the parish. That the ad valorem tax described in Section 1 shall be levied, assessed, imposed, collected, paid, and enforced according to law. That the obligations and rights of taxpayers in connection with the ad valorem tax levied hereby shall be provided by the provisions of law applicable to ad valorem taxes levied in the parish. If any one or more of the provisions of this ordinance shall, for any reason, be held to be illegal or invalid, such illegality or invalidity shall not affect other provisions of the ordinance, but this ordinance shall be construed and enforced as if such illegal or invalid provisions had not been contained therein. Any constitutional and statutory provision enacted after this date of the ordinance which validates or makes legal any provision of this ordinance which would not otherwise be valid or legal shall be deemed to apply to this ordinance. Upon adoption, this ordinance shall be published in full in one issue of the Gonzales Weekly and shall be recorded in the mortgage records of Ascension Parish Clerk of Court. The chair of the governing authority being is hereby authorized, empowered, and directed to make any and all such action as may be necessary to carry into effect the provisions of this ordinance. The ordinance shall immediately take effect upon adoption. The ordinance had been permitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to open public hearing.
Have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati to open a public hearing.
Second.
Second by Mr. Melanson.
Motion to close.
Have a motion by Mr. Melanson and a second by Mr. Cagnolati, or missed you there, Dan. He beat you. To close the public hearing. Chair would entertain a motion to move the ordinance.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Turner to move the ordinance, second by Mr. Wagasback. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item P, reading of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Political Subdivisions, Autonomous Boards, Commissions and Authorities, Article 11, Consolidated Utilities District, Subdivision 3, Public Sanitary Sewer, Section 18, 117.2, Community Sewage Systems to be connected to public sanitary sewer.
To amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Political Subdivisions, Autonomous Boards, Commissions, and Authorities, Article 9, Consolidated Utility District, Subdivision 3, Public Sanitary Sewer, Section 18-117.2, Community Sewage Systems to be connected to public sanitary sewer.
Whereas Ascension Parish local government subdivision defined by Article 6, Section 44, Louisiana Constitution 1974. Whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing responsible body over the consolidated utility districts. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4th, 1993 identifies the manner and process which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of the parish. Whereas the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Section 9, Section 17, 117.2 was last amended on November 6, 2014. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the Code of Ordinances of Ascension Parish Board of Chapter 18, Political Subdivisions, Autonomous Boards, Commissions, and Authorities, Article 9, Consolidated Utility District, Subdivision 3, Public Sanitary Sewer, Section 18, 117.2, Community Sewage to be connected to public sanitary sewer, be amended as more fully described in Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part hereof. In the event any portion of the ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions and shall not affect the validity of remaining portions of the ordinance. The ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion by Mr. Mason and a second by Mr. Lambert to open a public hearing. Motion by Mr. Ogeron, second by somebody, please, to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lawler to close the public hearing. Are there any questions? Mr. Ogeron has a question.
Mr. Parrington,
Yes.
could you please explain what this ordinance is intended to accomplish?
I drafted the ordinance. I think the intent is to authorize the council to agree to alternative sewer plans. You have to come before the council to do this, but if you have a plan, if the engineering staff and the utility staff think there's a better way to protect the waterways of this parish, they can come to the council and revise how we normally do sewer.
Does it also allow the public, like a developer, to come to the council and ask?
He would have to come to the council if he can prove that it will benefit waterways, yes.
Okay,
It would go to the utility staff and the engineering staff and then come to the council.
okay, that's what I wanted to make sure of. So
Right.
it protects the developer and gives the developer the opportunity to come to the council for like an appeal type process to overrule.
Absolutely.
Fantastic, thank you.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Oops, didn't quite hit hard. All right, item 9, employee appeals. At this time, we need to determine if the appeal will be in open session or in closed session. And Mr. Parrington will be advising the employee as well as the public speakers and the council on the legal procedure here.
Don't think the employee's here. Wait, there's multiple. There's more than one appeal from what I'm at.
There are 3 tonight, I believe. Two.
Two.
Mr. Parrington, if the employee has left, what is the assumption at that
They've
point?
waived their appeal.
Thank you very much. So the employee,
If they
one
were
of the,
properly notified and they didn't appear, they waived their appeal.
Yeah, I had staff that they notified, they assured me they had been.
Okay, then they've waived their appeal.
but both of them are absent
No,
tonight?
one is,
Just one.
The first one is in open session.
that one is waived her appeal.
Okay, very good. So that,
Here or outside.
is there anything that I need to say into the record to reflect that, Madam Parliamentarian?
I would just suggest that you call for it real formally, and if they come up, then they're here, and if not, they, prove that they're not here.
Right. So there is an employee appeal that should be taking place now, and that employee whose name is protected, but who was notified that he or she was to be here this evening is asked to please, if you are here in the building or within the sound of my voice, to appear now in this chamber so that we can proceed.
You can say her initials, so it'll be on the record.
Initial GM. Someone should probably call outside as well, I believe. Mr. Turner, who is a good lawyer, has advised me.
I looked outside, I inquired with the person that's been checking on our temperatures and all this stuff.
Okay, well, let's let Mr. Diaz go take a look, just in case.
Madam Chair, whoever from the audience is addressing us
Okay.
should come to the podium to make it clear and on the record.
Okay, Cinnamon, would you go check and see if she's here? Mr. John Diaz has offered, but since he is a part of the staff, it's probably a better idea, I'm advised, for you to do that. Mr. Diaz, another Mr. Diaz.
Better-looking Diaz is going out there. The smaller ones at Mike.
Nice to see you, Mr. Jeff Diaz.
Nice seeing y'all. Thank y'all for what y'all did for me last month. It's been 20 years that I started working with this parish next month as special counsel. So it's been a long and great career. And thank you for what you did to recognize that, and also let me do it another 20 years.
Mr.
I'll
Diaz,
still be here at 78 years old.
how did you start practicing law at the age of 10?
Thank you, Mr. Orgeron. I wish I had, but a lot of exercise keeps me in shape.
We're delighted.
A lot of
that-
stress from doing this job, like we all have, yeah.
We're
Isn't that right,
delighted
Mr.
we were able
Lawler?
to help.
And Mr. Turner. 1/3 of the council is now attorneys.
That's a good thing.
We're taking over.
They make sure I get it right. Travis
you're
made
doing-
sure I understood.
You're doing a great job.
Somebody else to go out there.
You're doing a great job, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And the council secretary has notified the chair that no one is outside, so employee GM is not present and therefore has waived her appeal. I saw the door opening again. I was like, wait a minute. Let's make sure.
That's happened before in court. The witness just runs in, takes a stand.
All right, thank you. So
Thank you.
that one has been waived. Now there is one to take place in the executive session. So we will, the
Motion
chair
to
would
go.
entertain a motion to,
A motion to enter into executive session.
I have a motion by Mr. Melanson, second by Mr. Cagnolati to go into executive session.
I think we have the same issue.
All right, so we are, that requires a roll call vote to go into executive session. Cinnamon?
Councilman Thomas. Councilman Robert. Councilman Turner. Councilman Orgeron.
Yes.
Councilman Lambert. Councilman Melanson.
Yes.
Councilman Lawler.
Yes.
Councilman Wagisback.
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati.
Yes.
Councilman Mason.
Yes.
Chairwoman Casso.
Yes.
from executive session?
Second.
Wait, you gotta wait till they,
Oh, I'm sorry. Jumping.
Yeah.
We good? All right, I'd like to make a motion to reconvene from.
Second.
we are reconvened. All right, at this time, the chair would entertain a motion.
I would like to make the motion to uphold the determination.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. A motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by Mr. Mason to uphold the termination. This time, Cinnamon, there'll be a roll call vote.
Councilman Thomas. Councilman Robert.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
No.
Councilman Orgeron.
No.
Councilman Lambert.
No.
Councilman Melanson.
Yes.
Councilman Lawler.
Yes.
Councilman Wagisback.
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati.
Yes.
Councilman Mason.
Yes.
Chairwoman Casso.
Yes,
We have 4 nays, 7 yeas.
the termination, how do I declare that, Cinnamon, please?
You have to have 2/3 to overturn.
Termination, her termination is upheld.
Okay, motion to enter executive session.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Lawler, a second by Councilman Mason to enter another executive session.
Councilman Thomas. Councilman Robert.
Yes.
Councilman Turner. Councilman Orgeron.
Yes.
Councilman Lambert. Councilman Melanson.
Yes.
Councilman Lawler.
Yes.
Councilman Wagisback.
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati.
Yes.
Councilman Mason.
Yes.
Chairwoman Casso.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to reconvene.
Second.
Second. I have a motion to reconvene, a second. We are reconvened.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to direct our parish attorneys to settle the lawsuit.
Second.
Do you have a motion and a second to direct the parish attorneys to settle this lawsuit? Or are there any objections? Have one, two. Cinnamon, we need three, maybe?
One question, please. Can I ask you?
Yes.
I want to make sure that it's known that make sure it's known that the administration is also supporting this motion to go forward with the settlement.
Thank you. Cinnamon, would you do a roll call, please?
Councilman Thomas.
Yes.
Councilman Robert.
No.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Councilman Orgeron.
Yes.
Councilman Lambert.
Yes.
Councilman Melanson.
Yes.
Councilman Lawler.
No.
Councilman Wagisback.
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati.
Yes.
Councilman Mason.
Yes.
Chairwoman Casso.
Yes. I need to ride home.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.